Greetings, flesh creatures. It is I, Megatron. On behalf of TFYLP, I want to congratulate you for listening to the most refined collective podcast on this miserable little planet Earth. Yes. Here you'll find knowledgeable fans discussing every aspect of Transformers and beyond. Now, enjoy the show while I continue my path to complete conquest of all of you miserable biological entities. Predacons, terrorize!
Hi, welcome to TFYLP, episode 486. We are live tonight, June 20th. I'm Lucas. I'm joined tonight by Phil.
Good evening.
And Christian.
What up?
There we go. So, thanks for joining me tonight, guys. So,
pleasure to be joined.
After the long weekend, I was lucky enough to get today off, so.
Oh, okay, yeah, Mr. Flex. Here.
Okay, both Mr. Flexes. Some of us have to work for a living.
Oh, I'm sorry. Some of us work for companies that care about the ending of slavery.
Good for you. It's a fantastic thing to care
about. My company just gives me off the federal holidays, so, you know. But
I don't even get that. I know.
Yeah.
It is interesting with some of the federal holidays that, like, other people do have to work. You know, like, today our garbage still got picked up. So, right. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I mean, that's the case
but the mail
with
didn't
all
run.
of the holidays.
Yeah.
So.
Contractor life.
Yep. So, anyway, so tonight we're going to be talking about, what was it like? How do we decide what to collect? So I figured you guys would all probably be good guests for tonight, because I know you have a plethora of items that you guys collect, and there's been different, you know, things that you've collected over the years and kind of pulled back, and myself as well. So this topic kind of popped up for me because I'm trying to put my collection back up. And after I took it all down, and I'm trying to figure out, like, what should I put up? What should, you know, what gets cut, what stays, all that type of thing. Am I going to bin it then? Am I going to sell it? So, you know, maybe we'll have yet another episode talking about that. But we'll see. But yeah, like, I think, and then also it made me think of it as well because Phil today was talking about, you got Bonsaitron today from Super 7, and it was like just totally not even on my radar at all. So
yeah, I mean, I enjoy him. He is a solid chunk of plastic. If he didn't have a Decepticon logo, I don't know that I would know he was a Transformer. And I'm not saying that because he doesn't transform. It's a very lesser-known Transformer from the Action Master era, which I'm a big fan of that era, especially the new Transformers that were created during that time. But because of that, he doesn't have a lot of identifiable kibble. So it's not like you can tell, like, oh, that's definitely like a you know, car hood on his chest kind of thing, or jet wings sticking out of his back. And so he's a fun toy. He's a very solid toy. He moves nicely and cleanly. I was surprised at how easy the hands were to pop off. They feel very secure. The weapon fits in the hand pretty nicely, you know, but again, not like super firm or tight where you feel like you're going to warp the plastic. I don't necessarily like this dude that much, his little Action Master pal, because it literally doesn't do anything. It has no points of articulation at all. And while it looks neat and the paint is nice, you know, it's a very cool color scheme.
It doesn't do the weapon thing?
It doesn't do the weapon thing. It doesn't fold out. It doesn't.
Why?
The legs and the claws don't even move. So I feel like that's
Why would you
I'd say my
have done
biggest
that?
point of disappointment.
For $70 figure, you think they would include that?
Yeah, and Bombshell's Action Master partner does break apart to become Bombshell's head to mimic the helmet feature that the Action Master Bombshell had.
Mhm.
So I don't know. I really like this toy. I don't know where I'm going to put it on my shelf. I do have Bludgeon on pre-order. I'm excited for him and his accessories. But I don't know. I mean, so far the red line, I picked up Impactor on a ton of people's recommendations, and I'm gonna sell them. I don't enjoy not Impactor. I'm sorry. Knockout. I picked up Red Knockout on a ton of people's recommendations. That toy to me feels it just feels bad. As much as this feels like a nice solid chunk of plastic, Knockout feels flimsy and like I'm going to shred his leg joints at a moment's notice sort of thing. The hip joints especially, where it connects into the thighs. So I don't know. So that's one thing I'll say, I guess, is what I'm collecting. I've dipped my toe into the non-transforming Transformers, and I'm not going to wade that deep into that pool.
Well, now the knockout, that's the Red Series figure. Is that right?
The Red Series Knockout, correct?
Yeah. And I think that's kind of, for action figures as well. I don't know. You've tried to, differentiate, like, do you get the SH Figuarts Star Wars, or do you get the, Hasbro, Black Series?
Yeah, for Star Wars, I buy Black Series. I mean, for me, what I've kind of said for years is the really super nice stuff is really super nice, but the mainline stuff that comes out from most toy lines is good enough, in my opinion. I'll pick up third-party Transformers and I'll pick up Masterpiece Transformers because those, I feel there's discernible differences in the engineering and the quality of the figure. But yes, it's definitely a discernible difference that you're going to get from a Hot Toys Star Wars, character than you're going to get from Black Series. But they're bigger, they're a different scale, and I don't need them to do all of that. I'd rather have a whole army of clone troopers on a shelf that all look pretty darn great, versus having 2 or 3 Hot Toys clone troopers that look fantastic, but I can only afford, both in money and scale and money and size, 2 or 3 of them.
Well, and I know, going back to Transformers, that's kind of part of the reason that I decided to stop doing Masterpiece, is because, all of these properties, and Transformers especially, like, the number of characters that they have, the number of figures is just crazy, So, like, if I enjoy Voltron, for the most part, if I'm collecting, some of the bad guys and individual figures and things like that, like, maybe there's more to collect, or Ninja Turtles. And I'm sure Rob would probably, tell me that there are plenty of figures in the Ninja Turtle universe. But, like, I feel like with a lot of those, there's only a handful of characters that I really need to collect to feel like I, have my representation. Whereas Transformers, there's so much. Just so many characters, and it's just a constant wave that I feel like I don't have the money or the space to continue that, Masterpiece, run. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm wrong. Because I've spent plenty of money on all that in the past. So maybe if I just went down that lane rather than the classics lane, or Generations, or whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, I think when you look at some of the 80s toy properties, the earlier 80s toy properties had a bit of a different model than what came out in the late 80s and 90s. And so, I mean, like He-Man and G.I. Joe and Transformers had a different model than, say, Ninja Turtles or Power Rangers.
Right.
The earlier 80s, you would have some new versions of the main characters, you know, Optimus Prime, Megatron, Starscream, Bumblebee, He-Man, Skeletor for the Motu line. G.I. Joe, you'd have, you know, new Snake Eyes pretty often. But then what you'd also get is just a smorgasbord of new characters every single, you know, year. And so you just have, you know, if you're like, oh, I want to only collect, you know, mainline releases of G1 characters, like you're still going to be buying a crap ton of toys every year. You know, same thing if you're buying like, oh, I'm going to buy the G.I. Joe Classified of, you know, what came out from when I was a kid in the 80s, of just new characters. You're going to get a ton of toys every year. But like you said, for Ninja Turtles, it's like, all right, I just want the Turtles and Shredder and Splinter. There you go, half dozen figures, and you've got a pretty full looking shelf. Maybe you throw Bebop and Rocksteady and a Foot Soldier in there, and Krang, and now you're up to 10 toys. Oh, April and Casey Jones. Okay, a dozen figures, and you've got. But again, like you can go
I
out
love it.
and
Like,
get.
if you just keep going, you know, and maybe you get the like, you know, robotic like turtles, and then maybe you get like.
Yeah. But I'm saying, like, you can stop at four turtles and feel the four turtles and feel like you've got a good display. You can build out some of the bad guys and get the main bad guys and some of the other main characters. But like at about 10 figures for Ninja Turtles, you've got pretty much all the main characters, and there you kind of go. Ghostbusters is another one. Okay, you get the four Ghostbusters and you know, throw Slimer in there, and you've got a good
Slimer,
Ghostbusters
yeah.
display.
Right.
You know, but yeah, Transformers especially is just character after character after character. And like the whole reason they had the movie was so they could kill off all the characters from the original,
Right.
you know,
Right.
waves and give us all brand new toys. So we go on and buy those. And they did it again with Headmasters, and then the cartoon stopped, and they just kept pumping out brand new toys and brand new characters. Not just brand new toys, but brand new characters.
Right, and that's not even counting. I mean, that's just G1. It's not even counting Christian's G1. You know, I don't know. What would you count as your G1, Christian?
G1 or Beast Wars. I got them at the same time.
I don't know if you were gonna go like Energon, you know, trilogy or the movie or something like that.
I'm 30 years old, man.
Okay, fine.
I'm ancient.
But yeah, like I mean, there's been a zillion different cartoons as well. So it's like, where do you then do you collect movie? Do you collect all that? And I don't know. I think that's the thing that's kind of hard with Transformers. I mean, outside of Optimus Prime, obviously, you know, if you want to call him, and then Megatron, but then after that, I feel like that it's kind of can be somewhat difficult to draw the line. Like you said, like I feel like that Turtles, there's like a definite progression where you can say, all right, I'm just going to collect this one and that one. But then it's like, I mean, I think there's probably a debate about who the main characters are, for Transformers. So.
Yeah. I think in a more literal sense, like how do you decide? Based on the evidence, we've all decided based on years of trial and error on trying to figure out what our collections actually are. It's an ongoing battle. I've done it for many years. Lucas, you're in the midst of it now.
Right.
The best rule I can say is don't collect stuff you don't like. Remember that time you made me quit collecting Masterpiece? It's a famous story we've told a bunch of times, but yeah, you made me quit collecting Masterpieces.
Well, I don't feel like I made you quit collecting Masterpiece.
You
I
forced
just pointed
me.
out. I pointed something out to you that got you to think about it, but then you're still like, when you say, "Oh, I'm not collecting Masterpiece anymore," you still have plenty of Masterpiece, and you are still somewhat actively collecting third-party Masterpiece figures too. Like you just got Raiden, right?
I got Raiden. That's the only one I've gotten in 4, 5, 6 years. How long has it been since I quit Masterpiece, Lucas? 4 years? 4 years.
Has it been that long? Oh my god.
2018. It might have been 2019.
I think it was, yeah, it's probably 2019, so.
It's been 3 years.
Yeah.
And the more I've thought about him during today, the more I'm thinking he is going to exit my house very quickly.
Wow.
Because why did I quit Masterpiece? Because I don't like it. It's not fun. I like being able to switch my Transformers back and forth anytime I want and not have to dedicate a whole, quarter of my day to transforming one thing. Make that 6 things, that's an entire day. That's a day and a half, actually, if you do the math. I mean, these things are ridiculous. And it's not that they're, well, 2 of them so far are poorly designed, 2 of them are okay, and 2 of them I haven't opened. But I generally don't collect Masterpiece or third-party Masterpiece because of that reason. Like, I don't find them exciting. I don't find them fun. I decided long ago, and then again, and then probably at least 2 more times, that I collect toys rather than, like, collector's items. That's what I go for.
So Josh brings up an interesting point. He says, I keep adding guidelines for what I should get. Clones, troopers, Mandos, I'm out of control, whatever. And I am 100% on board with that too. I feel like that, it's the ever-expanding collection, right? Because it's like one of those things where you start off small and you're like, I'm just going to get classics, or I'm just going to get, this small group of figures. I'm only going to get a couple, all that type of thing. And then you're like, oh, well, wouldn't that, the display shelf doesn't look complete without XYZ. And so then you add that. And then you see something cool at the store and you're like, oh, I'm going to go ahead and get, whatever. I mean, I feel like that was kind of me with like Marvel Legends a number of years ago where, I wanted to start collecting some of those, and then that got out of hand pretty quick because there's just so much, every time you go to the store, there's a new wave and whatever. And so even trying to limit the scope of some of that, like, like you said, Star Wars or Marvel Legends, it easily starts filling a shelf.
I think that has to do with the collecting mentality in general. I mean, if we're already into getting several pieces for a whole collection, it's not a large step away to say, okay, let's get more pieces for this part of the collection or this part of the collection. Oh, but I'm only going to get this part. Well, this part and this part. And it's just, it can expand so much. You got to be really careful or you can, get yourself some real trouble.
Well, and the other thing I feel like with Transformers, it's a little bit unique compared to a lot of the other properties, is Star Wars burnt me a number of years ago because I got a bunch of Star Wars, I don't know, like Black Series and mainline, 3 3/4 or whatever, both, right? You could not, like, for the life of you, resell Star Wars stuff. Like, it depends on what it is. Obviously, if there's something that is unique, like rare, hard to get, whatever, right? But like just normal stuff, like it's just impossible to sell, right?
You can't get it out.
You just can't get rid of it because everybody has it. Whereas like for whatever reason, Transformers, like I don't know what it is. There's always people willing to buy Transformers. Like I think that's the one thing. Like Marvel Legends was the same way. Like I couldn't like, depending on the character, like there was certain ones where like those were, more expensive, whatever, hard to get. Like you could sell them, the $10 or I'm sorry, the $20 figure I bought is now worth $100, right? But that is rare. Like I feel like the majority of it, it's like you just have to like, back up your truck and throw a whole bucket or whatever and, give it away to somebody.
Basically. So like how do we decide? Like, I know what it took for me to get out of Masterpiece, and part of that was Lucas, and part of it was I lost a job, and part of it was, this is just not fun, and part of it was the whole I collect toys, not collector's items thing. But at a similar time, I began collecting bots, and I was like, well, why would you start something new at that stage of your collecting, right? Don't do it. It just adds a whole other dimension. But I ended up really liking it because the designs are fun. The hunt was fun. Displaying them was fun. But I gave myself a rule that said, if I'm going to collect these for real, I got one pack to experience the new line, right? That's the thing we all do. But I was like, if I'm going to collect these for real, I need to find a way to display them for real. And I did. 2 ways. So I just had to be intentional about it, I suppose I'd say.
Oh, so I was going to make a point. I don't know if I actually made the point I was going to make about the resale value of Transformers. So what I was going to say is because I can normally resell Transformers for close to the retail value or sometimes more than that, it's like almost a false sense of security that I'm like, well, if I buy this, I may not lose that much money. I might not lose as much money as what I would with like Star Wars. Whereas Star Wars, like when I had to give away an entire tote for like $50 or something, like I was just like, okay, like this is stupid. Like, and I never went back. Whereas like with Transformers, I feel like that because I know that I could, get a booth at a show, I can sell them on eBay, whatever it may be. I kind of feel like I'm like, oh, well, if I get this and I decide I don't like it, then I can, I'm not going to lose as much money.
I think for me, one of the big things of why I've gotten a little more toys than I'd like to right now, or I don't have a lot of guardrails, is I've not been good at keeping up my display. And I feel like keeping up a display really helps you to decide, is this a toy you really enjoy, or you pre-ordered it when the pre-orders went live because it looked cool and then you got it in hand and didn't think you liked it as much, or there's a new version that came out, or just for some reason it's fallen out of favor. So when you have a display, it sort of forces you to make a decision of how much do I really like this toy that I wanted on display. And I'm not saying you have to display all your toys, but my wife has always encouraged me, like, redo your display like every couple months. A, it's kind of fun to do it. B, it gives you something new to look at. And C, it gives you a chance to evaluate, is this a figure that you still want to own, or is it, something that just, seemed cool at the time and you're not as enamored by it. So that would be a big thing that I would recommend if you're trying to figure out what to collect and when to stop. And I think for you, Christian, that bots thing was probably helped by that because they are small. So yep. You can spend money on them and you can get a good amount of bots for a relatively low price, and they don't take up a ton of room. So yeah, you can complete an entire collection of bots and take up as much room as what I have for like, a dozen or so MP toys.
Yeah, I think you guys have seen my bots wall. It's not extensive, but again, I had to make a conscious effort to display those because they're small. Like you said, you can't display them in my Detolf land. It doesn't work that way. Yeah. And you could. It'd be horrible. Don't do it. So, figure out different solutions. And that was just a fun thing to do on its own. Now there's a show and it's adorable and everything's great.
Well, and then also you can fit those in shot glass displays, right?
You can, for the most part.
Or isn't that what you have, or do you have something else to?
I had shot glass displays initially, and that fit the first 2.5 waves. And then once they kept going, it no longer fit them. So I have they're IKEA wooden shelves with little ladders on them that are essentially in scale with them. It's cute.
There you go.
Yeah, shot glass displays worked for a while.
But yeah, so I mean, I think that's a good point, Phil, as well, about displaying them, because this happened to me where I feel like a lot of the more recent Transformers that have come out, I haven't really had a chance to display them, so a lot of those the Beast Wars stuff, like all the Kingdom and whatever, I just kind of like had a pile going, and I didn't realize how many figures there was that had come out recently, and then I'm like sitting there like getting ready to put them up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is gonna take up an entire shelf at this point, like from what's come out the last year. So
I think that's another point that we've discussed in this show, in previous episodes, is the volume of toys that come out nowadays. Because it used to be you had so let's go back pre Chug, pre classics. You basically had the one line. You had what was coming out to go along with that current cartoon. Whether it was, Generation 1, Beast Wars, RID, Beast Machines, RID, and the Unicron trilogy, what you had to collect was what had to do with those. You started to get then with collector stuff. I think I would say probably start with alternators. And you started to get alternators
in Universe.
Yeah, alternators in Universe. But Universe was a lot of like repaints of what had come before.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't necessarily tied in exactly to the cartoon, but
it wasn't. But it was repaints. It seemed like it was more collector oriented repaints with molds from everything that had come before it. So it was like, hey, if you like Transformers at any point in the last 20 years, here's a figure for you.
Yeah. But then like kind of on the higher end, you had the alternators, which was the precursor to MP. So that's when you started to get like the divergent of the
segmentation.
Yes.
Yeah, you had the cartoon line, you had alternators, you had Universe, and then what we didn't really think about at the time was GoBots. Not Machine Robo GoBots, but the Transformers Play School GoBots.
Oh.
Yeah.
So even at that point, we had the kid line, and then like kid line, and then.
But to me, I feel like that there is a line in the sand that started with the movie, where before that point, I think that you could have like collected everything, and it would have been reasonable, right? I think, well, it wouldn't have been as crazy overwhelming, right? Whereas after the movie started, and I don't know, I'm sure that we could probably ask Nick or Rick or Peter or whatever, about it, because, exactly how much space does it take up to display all the figures from the last, from movie onward.
Well, I think even if you compare the line sizes of not movie lines, like if you look at Cybertron and then you look at Kingdom, like Kingdom I think is bigger than Cybertron is. I mean, I should know exactly how many figures are in Cybertron, but I don't. I'm not that intense into it. But if you count all the Kingdom mainline releases and all the exclusives, I mean, it's just like Phil said earlier, volume of product.
I think the difference too is like the Cybertron, like they redid a lot of the same characters, like in different scales and different things, but
a little bit.
So like if you were just collecting a specific character or whatever, probably wasn't too bad, but yeah, it's or I'm sorry, I was thinking of Cyberverse, not Cybertron. But
oh yeah, that's completely different. That's a different thing.
That's completely different. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think what you started to have happen, and maybe this was with the movie line, was multiple characters coming out in the same line in different size classes. More often than not, what you'd have would be a core class kind of toy and a leader class kind of toy of like Optimus Prime or Deluxe. And Bumblebee would be in both ends of it. But you had these characters that were just like you within the line of a single toy line, you could get kind of overwhelmed once it started with the movie of how much there was that was out there. And then you go into all the like the little kid directed stuff or the one step changers, all of that. I would agree. I don't recall anything existing to that extent prior to the movies.
I'd be really curious talking to Paul because I know that he says he's a more of a character collector, and that he, will collect, Starscream, of course, and then he has like several other characters that he collects as well. But I'm curious, does it help him to limit himself, or does it actually encourage him to get more because of it? Because I feel like that's can be somewhat of a double-edged sword. That, like, is there a Starscream that otherwise you may not get, but because you're a Starscream collector and you have to have all of them, that you might get
Lucas, you and I have
General
both
or
fallen into that.
Oh, yeah.
You and I have both fallen into that recently, because our rules say we can collect generation stuff,
Right.
and that's not, I say rules in quotes, but you've picked up stuff just because it fits your rules and you're looking to get something new. Like, oh yeah, this goes in here. Why don't I just grab it? And I did it for the Pulse sale because I had sold the first 2 fossilizers last year, and then they went cheap for the Pulse sales. I was like, they fit in. I'll get them again. Why not? So they'll be here this week finally. It's just because it fits within the rules, you get it. It's more sometimes is a more driving factor than you wanting to get it. Just like you can, so you do, rather than you want to, so you do. Does that make sense?
Right.
But that's kind of Christian, where I would say your rule of like you just want a good toy. Guess what? There's a lot of good toys out there.
Right.
There's a lot of really awesome toys. Like I buy Marvel Legends, but I traditionally stay away from the MCU stuff. But like I got some MCU stuff to, because I was kind of like, oh, that looks good. It's like the 2-pack of Captain Marvel and Rescue Pepper Potts. It's like, oh, that Pepper Potts is a really good. Look at all those accessories. Look at all the stuff that it comes with. And it's like, I don't really like the MCU stuff. I don't really have a great place for it on my shelf to display. But it's like, I did get Cap, Thor, and Iron Man, Endgame, and Thanos. Like, Pepper Potts isn't too. I mean, she was in some of those scenes. I mean, I can get her and put her in there, and so it is just like this idea of like I only want to really buy toys I enjoy, and boy howdy, is there a lot of great toys out there.
Well, and I think that's the thing too, that like Power of the Primes, during that line leak, there was a couple figures I absolutely hated. But I think for the most part, most everything that's coming out now, like, I mean, there's a couple duds, but I feel like even the biggest duds that come out now are like not complete garbage. So it's not something where I just like, instantly regret getting the, whatever repaint or something that I was thinking about not getting, before. So I don't know. Like the biggest thing that's like irked me is that they keep releasing slightly nicer repaints of figures, and like there's actually been a couple where I have not actually gotten the repaint because I haven't thought they've been nicer, but a lot of them it's just like it's incrementally better, and so I end up wanting that, and so then it's like, well, what do you do with this and the other one?
I said I wasn't going to do those incremental things, and I've done it more often than not. I avoided most of the Netflix ones, not all, most, but some of the the buzzworthy stuff lately. Cup and Cliffjumper, I picked up both of them. I'm getting the new Studio Series 86 RC because it's just better. But at least they're not doing it to the degree from Siege to Earthrise, because I really did feel angry about that. I mean, I've been on this show since Siege and Earthrise, so you can hear my opinions about it throughout the years. At least it's not on that scale anymore. That seems like it was a one-time thing. But that was really annoying, and I hated it. Don't do it again.
Yeah. So Ron also brings up about upgrade kits. He says, one thing I changed my mind on was upgrade kits. I double or tripling the cost of a figure. Might as well buy the MP or the 3P MP. And, I kind of went the same way with upgrade kits. A few years ago, like I was buying all of these upgrade kits, but then, you know, I don't know. Like, I feel like a lot of times I wasn't using them and utilizing them completely. So, like, there's a couple of, like some of those DNA kits, like, I really like, and I know we talked about before this, like, the Predaking, the Power of the Primes Predaking, where it comes with that really cool sword, and it comes with some, like, other filler stuff, and, like, cooler wings and whatever. And so, like, that's one thing that I, you know, splurged on for that one. And then I know there's the DNA kit, like there's been a few other ones, but yeah, like it gets really, you can get really expensive. You know, like
I am pretty choosy about those. I mean, I just installed the Arc one, but I bought this Grimlock kit earlier in the year for Studio Series Grimlock and Wheelie, and I uninstalled it in about 10 minutes because I put it on. I was like, wow, this does not help me at all. I don't like this app. This is not my style. I don't care about gap fillers. I don't want to use this chest. This wheelie is blah. So I took it off and returned it back to stock. Now I've got to sell this somehow. But I'm very choosy about upgrade kits. Like I got Rotor Storm's guns because he needed them. Or I got Hot Shots cannons because he needed them. But one way that I've really decreased spending is on Reaper labels. If you look at my Combiner Wars collection, every single one of those Combiner bots has stickers. Anything recently? I mean, barely any stickers now. One, the price increase that began with Siege has allowed for more paint and they look better. But two,
right.
Toy Hacks has gone up in price a little. Not to say it's not worth it, it's just not my style anymore. I don't need to make my retail figures look super extra nice because then you have a few that stand out as extra nice among the masses that look, you know, like retail toys.
Yeah,
for me, it's about going together.
That's one thing that I've really stepped back on getting Toy Hacks, like Reaper labels as well, and it's all been because the mainline, like they started painting the figures more. Like, it just irked me to no end on some of those Combiner War era figures where it's like, I mean, like Wheeljack for, you know, specifically, it was absolutely horrible. So yeah, and I mean, I think that that's the same way too. I know, you know, we used to have Dakara where they released their own independent figures. Now they don't. But I don't know. I'd be curious if, you know, with as nice of figures we're getting from Hasbro now, how often people would end up buying that if they had a slight deco change. It probably would depend on the figure, I'm sure. Like, I mean, I know they did that for Abominus. Of course, I mean, that was a different era, but Volcanicus, some of those, so...
It's true. I mean, even if you want to go back to that, like how many LGs did you pick up while that was a thing? How many LGs did I pick up while that was a thing? Not many. Some, depending on figure.
Yeah.
I started doing it more once we started to get with Titans Returns. I started to do it more because I wanted the most accurate representation of the 86 movie cast. And you're getting that from Takara LG, and you weren't getting that necessarily from Hasbro. And guess what? Now Hasbro's giving that to us in the form of Studio Series. So I played myself.
We've all played ourselves. I was into that too. I got all the Target Masters. I actually did buy all the Decepticon Target Masters and then sold them because I like the Hasbro revamps more than I like the slavishly accurate LG ones. That's just a personal choice.
Those Takara LG Target Master Decepticons are phenomenal.
I'm sure they are. They looked nice, but I was like, I prefer these.
And guess what? Because I'm not concerned about my display so much, they're still staying in the bin. And I will say they're fun to play with. They're fun to transform. They look great. But because I haven't paid attention to my display in the last several years, they're in a bin. And that's problematic.
Yeah, I will say I know it was a few years ago that I did that, and I actually think that like I ended up getting more figures after upgrading my displays because like I went to IKEA and I like bought a bunch of Billies, and so now like once I did that, like I was like, well, I have all these shelves now, I need to fill them. And so I think it's actually probably caused me to, you know, now of course now I don't have that problem. Like I have another space problem, you know, at this point, but that was a number of years ago.
I think there's always going to be space problems. Only the most dedicated among us can get through without space problems. And I think the three of us agree that it's nice to continue going on in time and picking up new stuff every once in a while, or a lot of onces in a lot of whiles, rather than kind of focus on curating and appreciating what we have. And that's another problem with collection mentality. But it's fun. It's a fun problem.
Yeah.
Do we know anyone who has stopped and they just kind of focus on what they have? Do we have anyone in our circle who does that?
I mean, Peter's talked about that recently in terms of he's kind of stopped and like, I want to say focus on what he has, but like stopped the newer stuff and said like, listen, this new legacy does not bring me the level of excitement that I want it to. I'm going to focus on what does, and that's filling the holes in my collection that I had up until this point. Whether it's the rare stuff or just saying, hey, what really gets my engine going is these, you know, the 80s stuff. So I'm going to go back to some other toy lines that had cool toys from the 80s, because that's really what gets my fire, you know, burning there versus, legacy skids.
You know, I feel like Rob is probably one of the few people that has kind of hit that a little bit, where he's, you know, very specific about what he wants. Like he's getting to the end of like what he needs to get from G1, I think he's mentioned, and then he gets a new masterpiece figure like as they come out, or third party figure as they come out, right? But then he's satisfied with that, and of course, obviously he collects other things as well, like turtles and things like that. But like, it seems like that his, you know, like he's not going as much as some of the rest of us, but he's happy with that. Whereas like, I feel like a lot of times the people that if they slow down or stop collecting, they're just done. Like they get rid of it and whatever. Like I know, you know, like Bryce Rutledge did that a number of years ago, where he, you know, sold off a bunch of his collection. I mean, part of that is, you know, and I think you alluded to this, Christian, too. It's like life events and things like that will, you know, kind of assist with, you know, selling off your collection. But yeah, I don't know anyone that's like, all right, I'm done. You know, final piece of the puzzle here, and I don't need to get any more, and I'm happy with what I have.
I mean, Hasbro and Playmates and Takara and all these other companies, Mattel, have done a very good job of training our brains to not feel that way. We are all, for the most part, chasing that plastic dragon.
Yeah, to hear Lucas put it so starkly, it's like, oh, I'll never be done. You know, what is the final piece where I say, I've done it, it's over? And I don't think there ever will be. I'm okay with that. It's what I've described on the show before as being less involved over time.
But this is where, like, it's the hobby that we have chosen, or that has chosen us, the hobby that is called us. It's different than my friends who play golf. There's nothing really wrong with them saying, yeah, every Saturday when the weather's nice, I'm gonna go play 9 or 18 holes. Like, they're not looked upon as you know, can you cool off on that golf thing, because that's an activity versus our hobby is centered around purely just consuming versus necessarily there's not as much active component to it. I mean, again, we have Transformers. So, Christian, maybe to your point earlier, you know, I don't enjoy sitting there and spending a couple hours transforming a new toy. Like, I mean, I can see why folks like Rob, who really enjoy that, that's maybe a better end of the collecting of this hobby, because then you are getting the active time spent on top of actually getting something in hand, plus the time that you spend, collecting it.
I'd rather spend my time messing with my displays or coming up with new ways to do that stuff, or I'm doing a little bit more customizing now. Or
Yeah, I mean, I would
I'd
rather spend my time like just sitting staring at my phone, scrolling through useless nonsense. I mean, that's much better use of my hour.
This is me transforming the train bots.
Oh yeah.
And now I'm sad. Seriously, they take over an hour each. Kayan took me 2. And he didn't even go to train mode. He went from pants to robot. That's 2 hours. That's unacceptable to me.
I feel like we need to do a Raiden show and have you and Rob on and hash it out, because I'm sure he'll be like, "Oh, it was totally easy. It was fine. I didn't even need instructions."
I've basically been live tweeting it or just live messaging Peter about it, and he's like, "Oh, Kayan's everything I love about transforming robots." I was like, "Cool. Kayan's everything I hate about transforming robots."
That's funny.
But I'm not saying they're bad. They're bad for me.
I think, again, part of that, like you said, that if you're not into Masterpiece all the time and then you get this, you're like, oh my God, what is this? Because that type of puzzle is not something that you've attacked in a number of years. So, getting back to it is kind of tricky.
Like, I'm no slouch. I know how to transform things. I've been doing it forever.
Right.
It's not like I'm an amateur at this. It's just, holy crap, you're right. This is not a puzzle I've tackled in many years.
Right, but like the way, I feel like that every company kind of has their way of doing things a little bit, and they kind of iterate upon themselves, and so if you're not into, like, if you haven't gotten a bunch of the Zeta releases or some of the third-party releases recently, that it could be tricky compared to, again, like some of the older masterpieces or things that we've done before, because everything builds.
I had Zeta's Superion. I thought that would have prepared me for this. It did not.
No. Superion's fairly easy to transform.
I like him. That's why I felt confident going into the Moon Studio raid, but no, not the same.
My wife just heard me cursing like almost an entire night long as I was trying to transform Purple Potato. The first night I tried to get him into spaceship mode, and it's a phenomenal looking toy. I'm so glad I have that toy. I do have it on a shelf, but boy, howdy, was that like not an enjoyable experience.
Well, and I also think too that some people that collect that they might collect a Masterpiece figure, third party figure, or whatever, fans toys, and never transform it. Like, it might go straight on their shelf out of the box, and they never do anything with it, and they're okay with that because they just want the display pieces, versus other people that want to have that fun transformation.
I have a rule about that, or a guideline about that, I suppose. After I take my stuff out of the box the first time, mess around with it, many of my toys don't get transformed again, or it's very sparingly because they go on the display and they're there. But with my mainline stuff, which is my primary collection, I know that they can. At any moment in time, I can open the glass, I can transform something, and it will be done. But with like the train bots I keep talking about, I think once I get them to Raiden mode, if I ever do, I'll never transform them again. And that guy goes against all my guidelines, so it probably shouldn't be in my collection. You're hearing me work through this as I'm learning these things about myself and restating these things about myself and my collection. Where it's like, oh, I probably shouldn't have gone these. They broke a lot of guidelines, and they're still breaking them now, and they need to leave my house. But it matters that it can. That's the thing. Like, technically, the train bots can, but in what world will I ever subject myself to this again? None. Never. I will never do it again.
Well,
That's the
And
guideline.
that was one of the figures too that I was tempted as well because I like trains just like everyone else. I think it looks cool, and there is no mainline representation of Raiden, so it's like, do I want to go back and get the vintage one? Do I want to get the third party? Do I want to get the official? And I had those third party ones like on pre-order, and I ended up at the last minute as they're coming in like canceling them just because I was like, you know what, I'm not sure that this fits my collection. But like, how do I know what? Like, that's the thing. I just wonder is like, how do we decide what fits our collection?
So Lucas, I want to go into a tangent here off of something you said and Ron brought up in the chat earlier. The idea of pre-orders and what that does to our collecting. And again, not something that is new to the show, but the idea of pre-orders versus finding something in a store, I think, is vastly warped how we feel about collecting, because there's that fun endorphin hit that you get when you find something on a shelf. You don't get that in the same fashion anymore. It's not like you see an image of a toy that's coming out, whether it's in a magazine or you see it online, and then you just hope you find it in the store. And when you do, it's like, oh, there it is. There's the fun part. And sometimes that endorphin rush, hits and it wears off by the time you get home. But sometimes you get that toy, and so you find that toy at the store and you're like, yeah, I found so-and-so. And then you're like, oh, this is not as good as it looked in the pictures. I don't think I want this now. But when you have the pre-order system, you don't have that anymore. You don't have that seeing it live and then deciding you're just going to put it back on the shelf. Because now you've ordered it, it came in a box, you open the box, and now it's in your house. And yeah, you can return it.
3 dopamine hits for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you get to order it, that's exciting. And then it arrives, that's exciting. And then you finally open it. Oh, that's exciting too.
Or sometimes it's 4, because they show it off first before you get to order it.
Oh, good point. Good point.
Yeah, you get the hype of like, oh yeah, I can't wait to order that thing. And then the ordering goes live like a week or a month later, and then you get it, and then you open it. And yeah, at that point, it's just different. And what's also different about that is, like, I actually found toys at a Target this weekend that I wanted. I got like a Marvel Legend and 2 Star Wars Black Series that I was looking for. And like, that was so freaking rare. And it's just like, there's something about like going through the checkout aisle and then walking out of the store with like a pretty hefty bag full of toys. You're like, did I overdo it today? Did I overdo it? Like, I don't feel like I overdo it when I'm just clicking on like, this is your pre-order part. That, I rarely feel that sentiment. But when you like, just 3 toys, it's like, oh, it did a little much today. Now, granted, that's the day I picked up my Bonsaitron from my comic book shop when I was on the way to a vintage toy store to buy a vintage Dino Rider. So I knew I was already doing some damage that day. But yeah, there's also this sequence of how we get the toys to ourselves, especially through the pre-order system. It cuts back on some of the guardrails that we might have otherwise had.
But, it's kind of funny with the cycle that we have. I almost feel like I'm all, like, by the time it gets into my house, like, and sits on display, I'm, like, almost over it because, like, for example, like, Blitzwing, right? Like, that thing has been announced for, forever. We've had, various leaks and whatever. And then now people are starting to get it in various parts of the world. And so there's like lots more reviews. And so I'm just sitting here like biting my, it's like, all right, when am I going to get this? Like, am I going to find it at a Target? Am I going to, is my pre-order going to come? All that type of thing. And I feel like it's like by the time it actually gets here, I'm almost like, all right, like, like this is great, but Thursday there's more pre-orders coming, you know, like it's just this constant cycle. It's like I'm almost, you know, more excited for whatever that next thing is, because I don't know what that next thing is. I know exactly what, you know, by the time I've watched a couple reviews on Blitzwing, I've seen pictures on that. I've heard people talking about it on social media, and it's like, oh, okay, all right.
It's like was it Family Guy or Simpsons bit? It's like, why should I get the boat when I could get the mystery box? That can be anything, even a boat. You know, it's like, yeah, you get excited for the thing that might be coming down the road. And to Ron's point, I agree. The pre-order system, given everything going on these days, is probably the best system out there. Like, I don't have time to necessarily go to the store all that much. I had to go buy a Father's Day card for my dad, hence why I went to Target. Otherwise, you know, I don't get a chance to you know, quote unquote, go hunting. So that's why it was like so rare for me to find, like, you know, spend more than one toy at a time. It's like happens like maybe once every other year when I'm out shopping. So yeah, the pre-order system is what it is. I think overall it's a good system, but it does, again, like reshape our brains, and it also, again, eliminates a little bit of that chance for us to turn down picking up a toy.
That's fair. I don't want to hunt anymore. Like, every time I try, there's never anything I need. Like, you know, I'll go when Target runs a sale or something. I don't even step foot in Walmart anymore. And there's never anything at the Target sale. Like, just nothing there. So I just automate my whole collection, and it all shows up to my door eventually. And I'm really happy with that. And I'm really happy paying Hasbro $50 a year so I don't have to deal with store exclusives. I can just order them on Hasbro. They always come. Everything is fine. It's like it's an autopilot, which is nice if you're getting like all the things. If you're like me, or if you're like Lucas, where you're like, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get pretty much all of these, very few exceptions. Just automate it like that. It's so wonderful.
Yeah.
But to Phil's point, it does, you know, once you put that pre-order, how often do you go back through your pre-orders and like, well, do I need this, and do I need this, and do I need this? I do it, but that's because I've, you know, put in my budget plan. Not everyone does. So if I only went hunting, I would have a lot more situations like Phil illustrated and said, you know, and I would say, you know, do I need this now, or can I wait, or do I need this at all, or is it not exactly what I thought? No, with the pre-order system, it just shows up.
So I've been thinking about this with like Metro Titan, right? Because I like have no nostalgia for Metro Titan, right? And I have no space for Metro Titan. And so I've really been debating, do I really need Metro Titan, or not Metro Titan, right? Or Cyberverse Metroplex.
Cybertron Metroplex.
Or Cybertron Metroplex. I'm sorry, not Metro Titan. Why am I kept saying Metro Titan?
Apparently because he's coming from the Shadow Glass line later in the year.
You're right. So, Cyberverse Metroplex. I'm sorry. I'm like crazy.
No, dude, it's Cybertron Metroplex. Or Legacy Metroplex.
Right.
That's easy.
Anyway.
Big old buzzsaw.
Just call it the wrong thing, like, you know, just to
we just have to figure out. That's okay. Anna gives us a lot of experience with trying to figure out what nonsense names mean. So we got you.
So yeah, I don't know. It's late anyway. So I've really debated about that, because like I have no space for more Titans. Like the Titans that I have, like I'm not even sure I have space for the Titans that I have right now. So it's like that's one of those things where I need them to stop. Like I need to stop with these Titans here, because it's just, what am I gonna do with this? You know.
I like the idea of, you know, I need them to stop. It's like, hey Hasbro, can you guys just stop? You guys just like give me a break.
Well, this is like
Nick says that every day.
Yeah.
I'm like, stop trying to call that into being. One day it's going to happen. Hopefully it never does.
I mean, eventually
this
Google AI is going to take over and realize, like, oh, I don't need to kill the human population. I can just subjugate them with more and more pre-orders.
Right.
That's true. But yes, Lucas, you're deciding what to collect, aren't you? You're saying, hey, I don't have enough space for this guy that I don't really super care about, so maybe I don't need to have him.
I feel like, considering that I like called it like 5 different names that like weren't even right, that I probably don't need that in my life.
Poor Lucas.
So here's where I get to a weird spot. I apologize, remember her name. Is it
Tyrannicon Rex?
Tyrannicon Rex. I don't know where the heck to put her. I don't know where she fits in my display. But darn does she look cool. I think I like her better than the Beast Wars Kingdom Megatron. Just in terms of it just being a little more eye-catching. I don't like the dopey T-Rex eyes. That's kind of like, yeah, I'm a T-Rex. Yeah, how are you today?
Yeah.
But
everything else though, great paint, great head sculpt.
Yeah, I love the robot head sculpt. It is great paint. But like, so this is a toy that's just like, I like you. What do I do with you now? And that's a hard spot to be at with some of the collecting. And again, coming back to the problem that you brought up, Christian, is like, I like to buy fun toys. And there are some very fun toys that then you have, and it's like, I don't know what to do with you. And I don't want to just shove you in a bin. I mean, maybe I just make a little like part of my display. That's the X-Over toys. And like, now I'm talking it out loud.
I did that.
Yeah, I'll probably do that.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah. So, you know, but yeah, there are some stuff that just like, it doesn't neatly fit. And sometimes that's led me to say, all right, I don't need it. I can go ahead and get rid of it now. I had my fun with it. I rented this toy for a few years and now I can return it, kind of deal. You know, but yeah, that is a tough thing when you look at toys as sort of the art form of a toy, of the design, the mold, all of that goes into it. It is like looking at this thing like, this is really, really cool.
Yep, and I think a lot of us look at it that way.
Yeah. I mean, I'll go off on another tangent that is not even anything to do with Transformers, but the same kind of story here. And so that is this Marvel Legends Build-A-Figure of the Armadillo. And it's just like, I've got no attachment to this character, but he looks awesome. He's like a not even D-level Captain America villain. But like, I drove out to some dude to meet up with this dude in the parking lot to buy it off of him, like, 6 months ago. And I'm just like, I just picked this thing up and I'm so ecstatic to have this toy and that this toy exists and all the detail of the armor plating. Like, you got the cracks in there. And it's just like, I don't know where to put this guy on a shelf, but boy, howdy, is he fun. And
I'm really glad you brought him up because I got 2 of his pieces with whatever wave he was in. I picked up some figures. Yeah. I was like, man, these pieces are so detailed. Should I track down the other ones? How much would it cost? And I did eBay searches and looked for, a couple minutes, and I spent time trying to figure out how I could do it. And I was like, wait a minute. I've never even heard of Armadillo before this. Why am I doing this?
I think the only book I read, the only comic I've ever read of the Armadillo was like he looked totally different. He was in like a relaunch of the Thunderbolts, and they totally redesigned him. And he was a boxer. He was like in an underground like supervillain fighting ring, kind of like what they did in the Shang-Chi movie. And it's just like, that's the only time I think I've read a comic book with this dude, and I've been reading comic books for like 35 years. So. Yeah, but it's one of those things where there are some toys that just come out and it's like, gosh darn, that's an awesome toy. I don't know what to do with it. And I've at least gotten away from buying toys from random toy lines that I don't really collect because the toy itself looks awesome. I've narrowed myself down to just doing it to toy lines I collect, but I collect NECA Ninja Turtles, NECA Aliens, NECA Predator, blah 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 blah. Marvel Legends, Black Series, Transformers, and probably 1 or 2 other lines that I can't remember right now. So yeah, I buy a lot of crap.
Yeah,
but again, this comes back to what we talked about earlier. Like, Black Series didn't exist 10 years ago. I wasn't buying Star Wars ties. G.I. Joe Classified. There's a line I forgot. That didn't exist 10 years ago. So it's not even like NECA Ninja Turtles didn't exist 10 years ago. So not only are the toys that we're buying are putting out more toys, but there are more toy lines out there now. And that's, again, where it comes down to, like, all right, how much budget do you have and time or space or money to do all of it?
Yeah.
Mostly, I guess, if we're coming back to the question to say, how do you decide? Whatever you decide, just make sure it doesn't drive you crazy or into poverty or whatever. Just keep your brain happy without overtaxing it. We've all been there.
Relationships.
I mean,
Or ruin relationships. Or, ruin the right relationships.
I mean, I was going to say, I think that's probably the ultimate, deciding factor is money and space. And so at some point, you run out of one or either or both. And so then you have to start trying to like limit your collection so you don't, go crazy and, whatever. So
just be careful. Collecting is an interesting hobby. It's a very fun hobby. You can make a lot of cool friends. You can do a lot of cool things. You can see a lot of cool places. Just don't let the crazy bits of your brain take control.
And be careful of who your friends are, because you can easily find friends that will enable the crazy bits of your brain. And they're very great people and very nice people and very fun people to hang out with. And they're so much fun to go crazy with. But they will make you feel like, I'm not crazy. Look at Nick and Peter over there. Those guys are crazy. It's like, yeah, they're like an nth degree level of crazy. Two. But to every normal person who comes into my basement, it's like, you have a problem, Phil.
It's funny. Ron beat you to the punch. He said, find a group of enablers.
Yeah.
So, but
some of the best people you'll meet, but they do not help you make good decisions.
No, I didn't buy nearly as many toys until I actually started interacting with Transformers friends in person, Transformers people in person.
I will say the Transformers people has enabled me to further my collection over the years. I do think though, I think Nick and Rick and those kind of guys has actually helped me to not go as crazy, because I know that there's no way that I can catch that dragon, whatever dragon they have, that they're much further along than I am, and I'm never going to get to that spot.
So Transformatics brings up a good point. You could die tomorrow, be happy today. And I agree. You could. And if I had it my way, all of you would. But that's why I don't have nuclear code access. But in a serious thought, I think there's a point where some of us in these hobbies, in these collecting hobbies, realize, am I actually happy? Am I really happy with all of this? Or am I just chasing that plastic dragon and I'm fulfilling some sort of mental thing that makes me go out and buy this stuff, and at the end of the day it doesn't really make me as happy as I'd like it to.
Yeah, that's what made me quit hunting, because I realized that more often than not I was coming home empty-handed and frustrated or mad. I was like, well, I should probably stop doing that.
Or worse, you're coming home with something you don't really want because you felt like you had to come home with something.
Had to get something to justify the 13 stores you hit up that day.
Yeah. When you're on your 12th store, you're like, oh, struck out again. I guess I'll buy this thing to give me some sort of endorphin hit.
Yeah, been there. Not often, but yeah, it's happened.
Yeah. Or it's like, oh, I don't really want this, but it's on sale. I'll buy it. I got a Kingdom Scorponok.
I mentioned that earlier.
That's one thing that I really quit doing that years ago, because I found myself every single time that you whatever the Black Friday sales and whatever, I just find myself loading up all this stuff, and then I'd end up turning around and selling it. And I did the same thing with a lot of the movie toys too. So I was like, you know what, I need to quit doing this.
Just be careful with yourself. If you're getting into it, try stuff out, do it. See what you like, see what you don't like. Find yourself some guidelines, or don't if that makes you happy. Just be careful with yourself as you go along.
Yeah.
That's the best advice I can have for that.
I mean, I think the thing is that for the majority of these figures, especially with Transformers, it's usually pretty easy to find most of the stuff. And so you don't have to rush into it. Like there might be something else where that there might be some limited shoe release or limited whatever, something else, some other thing that is going to sell out and you're not going to be able to get it. But Transformers, I feel like for the most part, are not really that case.
Yeah, majority, yes.
I would like to. I'm not saying I will do this because this requires time and effort, of which I talk high and mighty about, but don't always put in. I would like to just look at for sales like the Pulse sale they just had, or Black Friday sales, or whatever sale it is, whether it's Target, Hasbro Pulse, Amazon, you name it. How many of these toys could you get for considerably cheaper versus how many toys would you actually miss out on? And what are the odds? Is it like, because my guess is it's probably somewhere in the 90 percentile, especially when you're talking mainline. And if you just wait, you'll be able to get these toys for significantly cheaper. Now, that might mean that you're either going to overpay on the 10% or not get that 10%. But I would be curious of what that ratio looks like.
I would say that the only figures you ever had to worry about are exclusives. And it really depends on what it is. But like some of that stuff, you have to kind of like you can tell a lot of times. Like I know Anna was just sending us a link. I guess the Walmart Netflix like Megatron and like whatever the other figure is called. Yeah, Skelevor is like what, $17 or something. And I feel like a sucker on that one. But
that was a toy that sold out at first. That was a toy that went out of was sold out on Walmart for a couple months, and then they did multiple new runs of it or releases of it, whatever you want to call it, and became more prevalent, and then sold out again, and then just is now like, what is it, $13 for one of those things, or $17 for the 2-pack? I mean, it's less than a deluxe cost for you get a Voyager and a deluxe toy. So I think it is sometimes hard to tell. I mean, you look at Kingdom Blaster. That was a toy that was hard to find and highly sought after. And then, well, guess what? Now they've got the Legacy Blaster, pretty much the same exact toy, and Kingdom Blaster is pretty darn easy to find. I think I saw it on Amazon the other day for like $20. So, I think it is sometimes hard to tell, but I would say, again, even with some of the exclusives, look at recent Amazon exclusives, they're going to Entertainment Earth and other wholesalers because I guess Amazon's just got a glut of them, like the Golden Disc Collection. So it's like out of the Golden Disc Collection, what, Pterosaur is the only one that is, if you didn't get it right away, you can't get it now.
Right, but then, like Transformatics brings up like the Prowl Ironhide set. And that's the thing is I mean, there's certain ones like you knew that one was probably going to sell out or, potentially be worth extra money. But I don't know, there's a few ones like Greenlight. Like, and I realize it's the only version of that character, and so that's part of it, but like that thing goes for crazy money. There's a handful of those, but then there's other ones where it's, like they're worth less or whatever. So
yeah, it's hard to tell, and that's where I said I'd like to just look at what are the odds, and are you comfortable living with those odds that you can get your toys for 20, 30, 40% discount, but you'll probably only get 85% of the toys.
I'm not comfortable living with those. That's why I do pre-order system. I'm happy if I can get them on sale at some point before my pre-orders come in, but generally speaking, I'd rather just have it taken care of.
Right.
That's fair.
And I'm grateful that my lifestyle allows for me to make that choice.
That's fair.
Yep. No, I mean, I think that we're all incredibly lucky that we can be at this point and even have the debate, you know, as it is. But
yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. But, I mean, you know, to transfer Maddox's point, could die tomorrow. Be happy. Don't feel like your collection has to own you.
I think that's probably
It's true. If you get to that point, stop and get out.
Right.
Then you decide to collect nothing. You anti-collect.
So.
Or you just become Paul, where you collect, but not really. Like, you barely open anything that you get, and then you're just like, you're doing it just to, you know, it becomes a second job for you. You're just selling stuff because you know how to and you're good at it, and collecting, you know, made you into this, you know, gave you a skill set that you know would not have had otherwise.
I mean, I will say I do know some other people too that they kind of transitioned to that as well, where they quit collecting as much and that they, you know, by them selling and being a dealer, they can have a lot of toys pass through their hands and they don't have to actually own it themselves.
Yeah, that's an option too.
Yeah. Not as easy an option as it sounds, but
right.
No, it's a difficult road.
Yeah. There's a lot of work involved with that. So
yeah. I'm not mincing words when I say it's a second job.
Oh, yep, 100%.
So what to collect, you know, figure out what you like, be kind to yourself, be happy. Right? Seems like some pretty good rules.
Yep.
Make sure you can look at it.
Well, all right. Well, on that, yeah, I guess we never even touched on that. The people, the mitten box collectors. So
don't do that.
People are weird.
There's no for Transformers. There's no reason to do that. Just don't. Do not.
Get your AFA graded windowless boxes.
If you want to be a mitten box collector for Transformers, go online, look up pictures of the thing, print them out, and put them on your wall. Done. It's the same thing, and it's significantly cheaper. Don't do it.
Yeah.
Do not do it.
I agree.
No.
So.
I will find you, and I will make you stop.
All right. Well, with that, I think we've done a good, decent
with
job
that
of
ominous threat.
Right. Thanks, Christian. So. I do want to mention book club this week is going to be Lost Lights 7 and 8. So that is going to be on the TF Talk Discord at 9:30 Eastern, 8:30 Central, where they will discuss Lost Lights 7 and 8. So come, and it's fun. And then they also, I think Zaldron mentioned that they will enable you to get other things as well when you show up. So.
What does that mean?
I think that they're just enablers, like how we talk about. Yeah. So, but anyway, so, but yeah, thank you guys for joining me tonight, and thanks to everyone in the chat. Thanks to Zaldron, Ron. Thanks to Josh. Thanks for Transformatics. Thanks to Catherine. Thanks to Adam. Thanks to Daniel. Destron was in here for a second.
Mr. Destron.
So,
I know that guy.
I think he just came by to let us know that he likes robots. So.
Did he say I like robots, or did he just yell at robots?
I think he may have just said robots, but yes.
Mr. Destron, mysterious guy.
Yep. So, All right. Well, and then we should have microcasters this week as well. I can't remember what we said. Are we still continuing with the legacy train?
I think we are doing the Legacy Beast assortment from Walmart this week.
Is that so? Yeah, I know that's what some people were wondering, whether or not we were going to go down that path and get those. And yes, we. Spoiler alert: we Christian and I both got all of them. So I think.
Yeah, we did.
Got a couple. Is that right?
Anna got at least 2 of them.
Yeah, I don't think she got the third one though. So.
Don't know which third one she didn't get though.
You guys did Skids last week, correct?
We did do Skids last week.
We
I gotta
did.
go back and watch that still.
Yeah. So it's pretty exciting. But,
yeah, so we'll see you Thursday.
All right. Well, thanks, guys, and we will see you next week.